welcome to another episode of Help with Natalie Cuomo. I'm so excited to be here with Jamie Lee. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
You are an Emmy award-winning writer, actress, stand-up comedian. I have been so excited all week to have you in.
Thanks, Natalie.
I have so much. I don't even know where to begin.
Oh my God.
First of
Can't
all,
wait.
I am engaged to a comedian.
Oh, okay. Wow. I'm sorry for your loss.
I know.
No, it's going to be good. It's going to be great.
No, I was watching your I know you wrote a book about wedding planning.
I did.
And I was watching your interview with Conan about how people ask the wrong questions about wedding planning.
Sounds like something I said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was just wondering, I always ask the best advice you ever received, which I will ask you. But in terms of what do you think the best advice you would give a female comedian engaged to a male comedian?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well,
I'm so sorry to put
here's
you on the
one.
spot
Here's
here.
one. No, I like it.
Okay,
I like the challenge. I'm up for it.
Okay.
I would say, well, my mind immediately goes to like stand up, which can kind of go into the vow space because that's sort of like the written, stand up sort of performance. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be a performance, but that it could be if you were not sort of reeling yourself in. So my advice would be, don't be afraid to be sincere during those vows because I think it's it's funny. I actually had this conversation. I'm now divorced. I'll be writing another book about divorce. I'm not yet, but I probably should. But at the time, my fiance, also a comedian, we had a discussion about this very thing, and I was like, I really just want to make sure that our vows. We're going to have comedians in the audience. I want to make sure that our vow is like not playing to the back of the room. Like it has to be about us in the moment. Like we really have to push through and make sure that the priority is to just be genuine, even if it feels like icky. Yeah. I was like, we just have to do that. And then his were so sincere and people were tearing up listening to his vows. And then it was my turn to go. And I truly did like a tight 7. Mine were, I thought I was being genuine, and I'm like, it still turned out to be stand-up. In fact, I used 2 jokes from my vows in my act to this day. So, yeah, but I want better for you. So it's not that you can't have jokes in there. It's just have the pressure, or if there is any pressure, just try to allow yourself to speak from the heart and not feel like it has to be a performance.
I like that. Okay, and the last, I don't want to make the whole thing about this, obviously, but I have to ask you. So, just because there aren't that many people that like are in this situation. So, obviously, there's like competitiveness in stand-up. What do you think is the best way around maybe feeling competitive with your partner? Obviously, like my fiance and I, we go on the road together, and I think we work really, really well together. But obviously, there are things that come up where you can't help it, and you almost even feel guilty for feeling like, I am so happy for you, but like, of course, I feel this way. What do you think your best advice would be around that?
I think that the best thing to do is to talk about it. I think that when you're sort of like gritting your teeth and you're like, no, like that's really cool that you got that opportunity. I think like pushing it down. Sort of, it's almost like that meditation thing where, resisting is making it worse. I think that not acknowledging it is making it worse. So I think as long as you're saying, I am happy for you, I am wrestling with my own jealousy right now, I'm not gonna lie. So like, just let me go off and like feel that, and I will come back. Like, I promise I'll come back. I really think that is like, I think that anytime you try to pretend you're not feeling a certain way, it just ends up feeling worse and backfiring.
Yeah.
So I think, and I'm saying this from a place of I didn't do that when I was in the comedy relationship, and I wish I had. I don't think I had the awareness of that being helpful. I think saying things out loud sometimes like takes away the power. So admitting your jealousy is probably like the best way through, I would assume.
I like that advice.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So, but now you're engaged again.
I am. Yes, we are we are doing it over.
I like that. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. It's a very different feeling. It's really like, yeah, I think that there was something about my first wedding that was, it felt like I was sort of, checking a lot of boxes just in terms of like what it should look like, and like really just sort of fulfilling this ideal of I am planning a wedding and it's an event, and it really became about the event and what the event said about me as a person, as an entertainer, as a host, all these other things. And I don't know if I'm even gonna have a second wedding. I think we'll probably like elope and have a party, or if we do decide to have a wedding, I just feel like the pressure is off, and it really has become more about what really matters, and that's a really like nice place to start from, because I am not feeling any pressure to like do things a certain way.
And what do you think like the biggest difference is between like just like a marriage and a relationship? Like, what do you think? Everyone says like there's this weight that comes with the commitment of forever. Like what is that? Like what is like the big difference? Do you know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah, I think that's a smart question, and I think I would say I guess my short answer is just I like that you have to work through things and that you can't quit. Like obviously you can, because I'm divorced.
But you tried.
But I will say I have said this to friends of mine. I'm like, it wasn't the marriage's fault. It wasn't the institution of marriage that was the cause of the demise. Like, in fact, that part I actually really loved. I loved feeling committed to someone. I loved feeling like I had a partner in everything and someone to share everything with. So like that part of it, I'm actually really excited to get back to. It just wasn't with the right person in that regard. And
how do you feel you can tell if it's the right person?
Well, I think issues come up no matter what. So you have to go in knowing that. Like, you are not going to be the couple that doesn't fight, because the couples who don't fight, they also have problems because they don't fight. Like, whatever that is, something is going on there as well. Mm-hmm. I think like there's sort of, I'm not saying everyone should argue. That's not what I'm saying. And obviously, like, if you can be that person who doesn't,
right,
whatever, it doesn't have like a contentious personality, like, obviously good for you. I'm just saying, like, I think arguments are going to come up if you're weathering storms together. Like, I just don't know how you do that without some kind of intensity. But wait, what was the question you just asked before that?
How do you know if it's the right person?
Oh, how do you know if it's the right person? Right. I think that for me, with my last relationship, I don't know it started from a place of being genuinely in love. I think we loved each other and understood each other, and there was like a real soulful soulmate-ish connection there. But I think that this relationship started from a place of just like being super into each other, and then also being able to be really good friends. And I feel like that is a nice place to come back to if we stray from that. Whereas with the other one, I never felt like we had that foundation. So when we would stray, I'm like, well, where did we start? Like, what are we trying to resume? Like
that, yeah.
You know?
I feel like my fiance now is the first person I've ever been with that we were friends first. And I feel like that's the most comforting thing about our relationship. Huge. Is that like we were friends first, and we come back to that all the time.
That's amazing.
So okay, enough relationship stuff. Your career is way more exciting.
Oh my God, no, Natalie, I hope that I'm like genuinely wanting to help you.
No,
in every
I just
way.
was like, I cannot ask her about this. Okay, first of all, I just watched that moment where you guys accepted the Emmy, and I like almost cried.
Oh my God.
For Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
And I was thinking so much, you're in a writer's room and you're writing on these TV shows, and it's such a collaborative process, I imagine. I mean, I don't know, writing on a show. And I was just wondering, I don't know anything about what it's like to write on a show, and I was wondering how different it is and what it's like versus writing for stand-up, which feels like the most isolating, every man for himself job you could possibly have, versus writing with this beautiful team. I mean, everyone's holding hands, they're like crying together, like you guys feel like this like I got goosebumps just thinking. I like stood up and I went to my fiance. I was like, I feel emotional. I just watched that. He's like, chill out. But I was just like, this is like, I just want to like, I don't even know what my question is, but just like the difference between working on like this beautiful collaborative project versus writing stand-up and what that was like, how you got into that, and just the difference between those two things.
Yeah. There's a lot there. I'm like, where do I, not that you asked a lot of questions, but I have a lot of feelings in response to your question, so I'm just trying to collect my thoughts. I think that as far as like the isolation technique versus the collab, for me, and I'm curious how you are with the process of your stand-up, I feel like I generate the most material, or the material I care the most about, when I say something in conversation with another person, and then they laugh and I'm like, oh wait, I think that might be a bit, but I wasn't intending for that to be a bit, but I'm like pretty sure that's a bit. And so I think that's why I do enjoy TV writing, and why I can do it is because it is so much of that. It's like everyone is you're sort of, you know, curating this group that all sort of brings out the best funny in everyone. And so if you're in a really good, what's the word I'm looking for? Like there's a real like synchronicity happening with the group that you're with. It's like, it creates a high that is comparable to like the most you've ever killed in stand-up, because it really feels like, oh, we're really building something here together, and we're all being so funny, and we all make each other laugh so much. So there is some crossover where I'm like really like happy that I started in stand-up, because I do feel like the joke writing ability and stuff, like obviously that comes into play on shows, especially like Ted Lasso, where it really, there's a lot of heart, but if you listen, it really is like
it's hilarious.
Joke. Yeah.
Plus there are these little jokes where you're like, stand-up wrote that.
Totally. Yeah. But I will say, like, yeah, working on a team and like being honored as a team, that is a new experience for me, because I didn't start, and I don't have like an improv background. So I think it was like a cool kind of transition. But what's funny is Bill Lawrence, who is one of the creators of the show, he knew me from stand-up and he knew me from acting. He did not know me as a writer. So I basically had him, he was watching, I had auditioned for I had auditioned for a pilot that he was doing, and it didn't end up going forward, but then I ended up doing Crashing, and then he watched Crashing and then called me in to be a writer for Lasso. Obviously I had to like send a sample, and he had to read my writing and all this stuff, but it is interesting how stand-up is eventually the thing that got me the writing job, I guess. Yeah.
How does it, like, just at kind of like TV writing for dummies, how does, and I'm the dummy, but how does it
oh babe, I'm the dummy, don't you worry. I feel so dumb all the time.
How does it work? Like, how much of it is you being kind of alone at your computer writing and bringing it to the table with everyone, and how much of it is kind of sitting around the table and being like, well, what about this idea? How much, like, how does that work?
I would say it is so much collaboration until it cannot be. So it's basically like you are with a big group day in, day out, starting big, thinking of big themes. You're whittling down. Then things are going up on a whiteboard like, oh, that idea could go in this episode. Actually, no, wait, it should go in this episode because in the episode prior. So there's sort of like math happening. And so you're, doing the Goodwill Hunting, like trying to piece everything together. And then, is Goodwill Hunting the right reference? I always get nervous when I reference things because I don't really retain movies that well.
I haven't seen it, so I'm
like, I think it was at a chalkboard or a whiteboard at some point. I know Matt Damon's in it. Anyways, but yeah. And then it's not until the very last second that you go off and do an episode on your own and are actually at your computer. So basically everyone's assigned an episode. So I think season 1, I had episode 4. It was like we outlined everything that was going to happen as a group. And then I went off and like did it on my own. And then obviously you're putting your like spin. You're putting your spin on it because you're the one who's actually writing the words on the page. But yeah, there's a lot of help. And then once that draft is done, you bring that back to the table. and everyone's talking about it, what they like, what they didn't like, what didn't make sense, and then you go back in on your own. So you feel pretty supported the whole time. Yeah, I think so. I think that you feel like you have a good amount of support. And what's cool about Ted Lasso specifically is like they really want your voice to come through in the episode, because there's jokes that I wrote in my first draft that I was like, these are gonna get killed, like these are not gonna stay in, and they did. They are still in there after all these passes, after The Room, you know, after we sort of like tore it apart. Right. It's like, oh, those still remain. That's crazy to me. So I feel like that's something very like special about that show in particular, writing
that's
on that
awesome.
show. Yeah.
Do you feel, I mean, of all your experiences, like writing, acting, stand-up, do you feel like you have a favorite, or is it like they all feed you in a different way?
Yeah, I think about that a lot. I think they all feed me in a different way. Like I've had, you know, people be like, what is like what is the ultimate? And I was like, I guess the ultimate is just having control so you can decide what your ultimate is.
Yeah.
Like whatever that, because I think that your ultimate can change. I think like as you grow as a person, your ultimates just shift and evolve. And like for the most part, I would say I've had the constant of, from the time I started, of like, I want to be able to write a show that I can act in. Like I know that's important to me. I know that I want to have my voice in a script that is then like turned into a TV show. And that is something that is now in the works. I mean, who knows with the writer's strike what is going to happen. But I'm like, I have worked towards that goal, and it is coming to fruition, because now I can be trusted, because I've built up the writing side. Well, now I can be trusted to write.
Right.
So it's not, I mean, if you haven't done that and you are interested in that, you can also find someone who has built that up, and then you collaborate with them and they can help you. So it's not like I had to do that, but I am glad that I have the skill, because now I don't feel so daunted by like, you got to go write a pilot. I'm like, I know how to write a pilot.
Right.
Like it's not easy. I don't think it ever gets easy, but I definitely don't have that initial fear that I had of like, I don't know structure. I don't know, like I have no idea. I just do it. Like now I'm like, I think I actually do know structure. Like for a long time I was like, no, I'm just a comedian. Like I just know jokes, man. Like, I'm sorry, I don't. And now I'm like, no, you know more than you think you know. And so does pretty much everyone who's in comedy. Everyone knows way more than they think they know.
Why do you think so many comedians have that imposter syndrome?
God, I love your questions. These are the hard-hitting truth. No, you're so good. You're such a good interviewer.
Thank you. Tell me
like,
more.
What a great, you are. I'm just like, what a great. It's like, yeah, why do we?
We do.
Why do we have that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Not to like answer a question with a question, but why do you think it's that?
Well, I feel like we never get like, not like a certificate or something, but we never get like a thing that's like, we don't get like, there's no validating thing that you get to take home at the end of the day that makes you feel like you did something. Everything's so every accomplishment's so intangible. It's so in the moment. Like I made a room of people laugh and now it's over, and it felt so good in the moment. But now what's the next thing, I guess? I don't know.
And there's always that feeling of like, yeah, I've done this, but I haven't done that. And you're like, it just, you could always sort of like fall into that trap of just being like, it's never enough. It's never enough. But I think the imposter syndrome for me, which is, it's slowly starting to lift, but it was really, really present for a long time. And I think a lot of it, I mean, this is not the cool answer by any means. I want to like let whoever's listening know that I know that. But like a lot of it was gendered. Like when I started in stand-up, it really was just like a few girls and a lot of guys, and the guys were great. They were great and they were killing. Yeah. And it's not like they went up to me and were like, you're small, I'm big. Like it wasn't blatant. But I think my mind, just maybe how when I was like socialized as a woman, and also who knows, like other weird trauma, who knows, but something made me feel like, oh, I'm not a killer like they are. Like I can't assert myself the way they do. Like there are just certain things that made me, I don't think I was thinking this at the time. I'm saying this looking back, because at the time I was just like, this is the scene. Like, if you want to be a part of the scene, this is the scene.
Yeah.
And I actually really hated when women would complain about how it was hard for us. I was like, you're like, whatever, that scarcity mentality. I mean, this is literally how I thought. I was like, that scarcity mentality, like, I don't want to hang out with people who think like that. Like, I'm whatever, I'll be on the show with all the guys. I don't care. And now I'm like, no, actually, it was so hard.
Yeah.
It was so hard. And I think especially starting in New York, and I think this has changed, but at the time that I started, it was like, if you have any aspirations outside of pure stand up on stage, any other creative pursuits are like diluting the product, and you're not a real comedian if you're not roughing it doing whatever 40 sets a night, going up at all the clubs, and like it was just very linear. It was like, this is how you do it, then you get into Montreal, and then you go to Montreal, and then you get a career. It's like, that is so not true. It's almost like Scientology and how they're like, you got to get to OT8, man. Like, that's when you really break through. That's when you really see the visions or whatever. And you're like, you get to OT8, and then like that Paul Haggis guy who was like, yeah, I got to OT8, I read the papers. It's nonsense.
Right.
It's about aliens, and it's bullshit. And it's like, that is comedy, and it's very scary because it actually isn't linear anymore. And now people are embracing that, which is so cool.
Yeah.
I know that this is not answering the imposter question.
No,
maybe it a little bit did.
I agree. I honestly also feel like I hate this, but I feel like it's not. I feel like it's audiences, actually. Like, I feel like when you see it's society is a little bit conditioned to think of women as a certain way, but I don't even want to we think of ourselves a certain way.
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
Maybe it's not. We just think of ourselves a certain way. Like the guest I had last week, I definitely feel like she also had like a bit of imposter syndrome about her own success, and I feel like we're just for some reason conditioned to feel that way. But I don't know. I don't want to use.
It's tricky.
Yeah, I don't want to use gender as an excuse either.
I know. It feels like it's like there's something about it where I'm like, oh God, don't do it. Don't say it. But some of it has to be a little. I'm not saying it's all of it, but it is part of it.
Yeah.
But then plenty of people who are not women also feel imposter syndrome. So it clearly is coming from different sources. I think for me, I feel like that compounded it maybe.
Yeah.
I don't think it caused it, but I think it made it a little tougher to like work against.
Right. I feel like it's interesting the way comedy has changed in terms of like there being a specific structure in the way that you go up versus like I think now people feel like more social media has changed things.
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of like an overdone conversation, but like what is your opinion on that? Do you feel like it's kind of diluting comedy or
I mean, I think when I see things like when I see the way like a particular tool or app or whatever has changed our industry, or like the way we've started connecting with audiences and building fan bases, I think that any feeling I have about like, ew, like that's bad because X, Y, and Z, I really try to just be like, yep, but that's the way it is. Like,
right.
Let's just, it's similar to like the topic of like being a woman. It's like, yes, all of those things, you could 100% give them power and say they're true or they're true to you or whatever it is. But what are you going to do about it?
Right.
Like, if that is the case, then do you sit back and you're like, nah, well, I'm not going to play the game, man. Like, that's just not. And it's like, you could.
Right.
But I also kind of am like, or maybe like just try to embrace it a little and like see what happens.
Yeah. Was there a distinct moment in your career in your stand-up career where you're like, okay, like I'm starting to do these tape sets, like I'm starting to do late night, I'm starting to do this, and you started to feel like almost fear around it? Like what was your feeling? Like, I guess I'm projecting when I say that. Whenever I feel success, I feel fear around my success. I'm like, wait, is it going to change? Like, what's going to happen? Or, like, what's your relationship with success and stand up?
Yeah. Another great question from Natalie. I think that, yeah, I don't know if I ever even really thought of it in those terms. I think that the thing that happened the most is being like, wow, this is going to change everything. And then you wake up the next day and you're like, no, still pretty, yeah, like getting a couple messages being like, great set or whatever. But it wasn't like earth shattering. It was like it was a good personal milestone.
Yeah.
Like, for example, a late night set. That feels like such a personal achievement where I'm like, oh, that's so cool. This institution's been around a really long time. It's cool to like be a part of that. It feels like historic. Like it just has like an oomph to it that you're like, that's cool. Like I'm doing the thing. But it is more like, but was that the thing that really changed my life? I don't know. Felt like it was good that I did it. I don't know that I think it opened up other doors, but I don't feel like it was the thing that I can point to be like, that was the moment where it all changed. Yeah.
Going to like crashing, I think the question that a lot of people have is, how realistic do you feel like that show is to like the actual comedy scene in New York?
Yeah, well, I would say the one that I remember feeling the most real was episode 5 of season 2, where it's my character Allie, and she's like has a bunch of shows that she's doing because she's trying to get a tape for late night, and she's just like trying to get the tape perfect. Mm-hmm. And so she like booked a bunch of spots, and she's like zooming around the city. Like that to me felt that is something I've done where I'm like really just trying to get the tape, and I felt like that was a really fun specific. And then I think the NACA episode was a pretty good specific of like, you know, who does really well with the college booking market and who like kind of isn't gelling with them because they don't have a broad enough appeal or whatever it is. Like I had been to I think 2 NACAs, so that to me felt really specific. Yeah, I'm curious, what do you think? Because like you're like living in New York, you know, I think like that show is sort of like a capsule of a time. Maybe it's not even the most like current version of it, but I'm curious. Yeah, what do you think?
I do definitely feel like it's the most realistic that's out there for sure, especially with like the barking, how hard people are on each other. And it's just like, I mean, I definitely, of all of the representations of stand-up, I would say that is 100% the closest. It's crazy. Like people don't, I feel like it also really teaches you like kind of, I don't want to say lingo. I hate that word, sounds weird, but like it really introduces you to a lot of like the lingo of like doing stand-up. Even the way like the characters kind of dress feels very like stand-up comic.
You're so right. Yeah.
I'm just like, yeah, I see that.
Yeah, the costume designer Dana like nailed it. She's she's been on so many. She does so many shows. Like she's such a badass. She's been whatever. She's just like, she's really good. I completely agree. The way Allie dressed, I was like, can I take this home with me like after the show?
I was like, yeah.
Can I take this home after filming? Because
it's kind of like this like awkward like not sure of yourself but sure of yourself like thing that I like nailed it. So okay, so you wrote the role and then didn't know if you were gonna audition for it?
Yes. Yes. I mean, we knew going into season 2, because I wrote on season 1 as well. We knew going into season 2 that there was going to be like Pete has a comedy girlfriend, and that was like discussed, and I was like maybe I can act in the show. And then it became very clear that I was not in the running at all.
Why was that?
I think it was like a combination of things. I think it was also like how Judd sees this character, how like maybe how the character also just evolved in its writing over the season and like who she became. And I remember like I think Pete told me, he was like, yeah, I don't think you can audition for it. And I was like, okay. And then it was really interesting because when you're writing on something, you almost do feel detached from that side of things because you're just trying to get a script together.
Yeah.
So it's easy to be like, okay, I'm not acting in this. Like I didn't act in Ted Lasso and I was like, that's okay. Like that's a different part of the show. Like it's fine. But I did feel like very connected to what we were trying to say with her. But then when you're told you're like not right for something, you kind of put it out of your mind because you're like, why? I can't fight this fight. But then last minute, after so many people I knew had gone in for the role, I was at Largo in LA and I think it was like a Pete Holmes and Friends show and I was just doing stand up on it. And Pete was like backstage, like, we're going to have you audition. And I was like, oh, okay. And because I was told I wasn't right for it, I think it gave me the confidence to really not care how it went.
Damn, yeah.
It was the perfect mindset.
God, not caring is always what gets people the
huge.
job.
It's huge.
How do I not care?
I mean, I cared in that, to be clear. Still prepped super hard. Two acting coaches, ran it with my friend, all this stuff. Like, still, like, had all of that. But when I went into the room, there was a little bit of like, I don't know. Yeah, I think it was just I wasn't afraid. I also knew everyone in the room.
Right.
You know, to walk into an audition room and it's like, oh, hey, guys, like, I saw you 10 minutes ago. Like, it's just a very different. Yeah. And then also I know that Pete loves to improvise. Judd Apatow loves to improvise. So there was not a pressure to stick to a script. It was like, no, I just know he just wants to see if, like, we can vibe out this relationship between Allie and Pete.
Yeah.
And so I think that also took the pressure off.
Right.
And then left the room. Judah, the showrunner, called me and was like, that was really good. And I was like, thanks. Like, I was like, it was really good. And then just didn't hear anything. And I was like, okay, what's going on? And then Pete wanted to go to dinner. And I was like, I called my manager. I was like, why does Pete want to go to dinner? Like, if I'm not getting it, can he just tell me? I was like, that's so weird. I was so weirded out by that.
It's the worst letdown.
Yes. Like, I was like, you don't need to like break up with me. Like, we don't need to do that. Like, we work together. I've known you a long time. Like, we don't need to do that. And then I found out, my manager texted and he goes, I think you're really going to like that dinner. And I like literally dropped my phone and was like, wait, what? So to go from you aren't right for this, you can't even try, to you got it, was like, to this day, I go, wait, what? How did that happen? Like, I wish I could go back and tell myself, like, this is going to get real good. Like, you just wait. Like, this is going to play out in the funniest way possible. That you're actually going to end up getting this when you're told you can't even try.
Why do you think that happened?
Why do you think what part?
Like, you feel like, why do you think you were given the opportunity to audition?
I don't know. Something, I guess they were seeing a lot of people and they were like not finding.
I mean, like, you understand that role more than, like, you're a fucking stand-up comedian. The thing is,
I also know how to bust Pete's balls, and I think you really need a little, not that other people weren't able to do that, but I've known him so long. I was like, I know exactly how he likes to be taken down. Right. Like, I know exactly like what he finds funny in being roasted. I was like, this is
like the roast culture of just like of doing it out of love is just something that I feel that like people try to participate in that are fans of stand-up comedy, and they wind up just offending me greatly. And I'm just like, I hate you and you're ruining my life. Like, people in the comments just like saying things and they think they're being funny, and I'm like, you're making me
you're like, that makes
miserable.
me insecure. Stop. We don't have that bond.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally. It's all context. It's
exactly.
Like, if there's a love there, you're like, you're pretty safe. But like, yeah, if you haven't built that trust, you're like, you don't just get to like insult me freely. Like, you have to know each other. Like, take me to dinner first. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly. That is so awesome. Would you say that would you say that was like the moment in your career that felt like the most exciting? Like, what was the
absolute, like, hands down, yes, because the blindsiding.
Right. It's the misdirection.
It is. I've never been more misdirected in my life. Yeah. And I mean, I have such like strong visuals of that day because I had to go to Philadelphia that weekend to do stand up. So I remember like having my little suitcase with me and like leaving the writer's room in Greenpoint and like going to the station and just like being in Philadelphia that weekend. Like Philly has a really strong like tie to that experience for me. And yeah, it was just, I mean, yeah, it really was this, I mean, just months of watching other people audition for it and really getting to a point where genuinely I was just giving them advice on what I thought. Like they would text me like, hey, I'm going in for this. And I was like, oh, here's what I know.
It's good karma.
I was just like, because it's just not mine.
Yeah.
But it is kind of that like sort of Buddhist, you know, like you don't own anything. Like nothing is really yours. And I feel like, not that I was thinking that at the time,
right?
Please, I'm not like,
I'm
not that astute, but I think that when I look back, I'm like, wow, if you really let something go, really, truly, there is a chance it comes back.
Okay, I gotta take that in.
I think I also do. I feel like I kind of just discovered it just now.
I like that.
Because it is the most I've ever just submitted to what was in my life.
I gotta let some things go that I want.
Okay.
But that's in that, I'm not letting it go in that sentence.
It's not really giving up. It's just like taking control of what you can control.
Right.
Which I think has been a big lesson that I've been trying to teach myself is like, it's okay. Like just really work within the parameters you're given. It doesn't mean that you're not going to push the envelope and try to expand those parameters.
Right.
But like you can do so much if it's like, okay, well that door's closed, but what about this door over here that's completely open?
Right.
I feel like that is kind of how you navigate it a little bit. And then that other door that was closed before ends up opening anyway. So you're like, yeah, I think that, I don't know.
What's your advice for not harping on rejection?
Oh boy. I think it's like really letting yourself have a day, have a week. Again, like just allowing, because I think sometimes there's a culture of like, fuck them. Like you didn't need it anyway. And you're like, okay.
I wanted it.
Yeah. You're like,
yeah.
But it's not that I needed it, but I really wanted it. And I think that kind of having that like, well, fuck them, whatever. I think that is a version of, again, going back to the thing we were saying at the beginning of like not acknowledging, it makes it so much worse. Like, I think you have to really just be like, oh, that's a true bummer. And then you kind of do just get over it because you have so many other things going on.
Do you ever just like, I feel like sometimes I'll get a rejection. I'll be like, wow, I wasn't good enough. And that'll just like fuck my confidence for like a while. And sometimes I'm like, and everyone's like, it could be this, it could be random, it could be that, or like,
right.
But for some reason, it's just like, I think the rejection of this business feels so personal sometimes when I know that it's not. Like, no one's thinking like, I decided to reject Natalie Cuomo because she sucks. They were just like, we picked this person and like not a bunch of these other people, and you are included in one of them. And for some reason, I find that rejection to be something that like is difficult for me.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure. Yeah.
No, I'm not saying that to minimize it. It's like hard agree. Of course. Absolutely, of course. A couple things I would say is one, and I mean, it's so funny, like giving advice when I'm like also living it. But one is there's so many things you've done that other people have not done. And you always have to remember that. It's like, okay, yeah, you didn't get that, but like, did they get this? No. Do they have the following you have? No. Do they have like rabid fans who are like psyched for your next move? No. You know what I mean? There's that piece. And then there's also the other piece of like, I think it does come back to control, where it's like, because I mean, okay, let's talk about like auditioning, which is what I assume you're sort of talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like, you are going to be told no so many times. Even once you've booked something, it's still no for a while. Like that is sort of like the gig economy of acting. However, it is that thing where you're like, right, but you're smart and funny and you could write something for yourself. And even if like you're not the most famous person that's going to get it greenlit, which you do have a great following, so this doesn't really apply to you. But if that's not you, then you would cast other people who are quote unquote bigger in the eyes of like the studio or whatever. And then they rise you up, and then you all rise up together. So there really are like workarounds. And I think that knowing, it's not that they're easy workarounds, but they are workarounds if you can like be patient enough to do them.
Okay.
I really believe that because like, I hope I'm not being too rambly. I had coffee and so I'm sorry if it's like yap fest over here. But like, I really wanted to act on Ted Lasso. Like that was like, oh, I'll get on Ted Lasso and like Bill knows me as an actor. Like I'll act on Ted Lasso. And one of our writers did act on Ted Lasso. But they were like, well, you're not British. And I was like, okay, but I could do a British accent. And they were like, yeah, Apple doesn't want someone inauthentic to be on the show. And I was like, okay, like parameter given. I cannot change that. I can't do it.
But I was given a parameter last time.
And then I wrote a character who was going to be American. I literally wrote her. And a version of her did make it in. I didn't get it. A British person ended up getting it. And the character actually was quite small and then that was kind of it. It kind of went away in a way. Still like a cool opportunity for that actor, but it wasn't this like, it wasn't Allie and Crashing. It wasn't like a main player, but I really tried. And I even like sent my tape to Jason, which was really hard to do. That is like, I mean, that is like such a emotional nakedness to be like, hey boss, like, here's my audition, you know, it's like, that's its own personal hell, you know? But then he wrote me a really nice note just being like, it's not you, but like, you're great. And he wrote this like really, and it didn't feel like bullshit. He wasn't being like, hey buddy, like buck up, you'll get him next time. It wasn't that energy. It was like peer to peer, him just being like, I want you to know you are good. You are not it for this, but you are good.
That's nice.
And like, I believe that. I was like, why not believe him? Because when I heard it, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. Oh, I'm so good. Then why didn't you book me? You know?
Right.
But then you're like, wait, what if it was just true? Like, what if you just allowed that to be true? And then when that happened, Bill Lawrence was like, well, why don't we just like try to make a show for you? And I was like, oh. And again, it hasn't gone to air. We don't know what's going to happen. We have no idea. Early stages. But I was like, oh, well, that's a workaround. Like, doesn't mean it's going to happen, but like, I'm trying and like, we'll see what happens and it could be really great. Like, what if that's like great? And then I get to like be the star of that thing. I was like, it just feels like stuff is possible even when it seems like it's impossible. Like, I really, really believe that. And I'm not a spiritual person. I don't work on myself nearly enough. Like, that is something I believe. I'm like, I refuse to be told no. Like, whatever it is, I was like, I won't be told no.
I love that.
I think that is like my favorite thing that I don't even know if I learned that or if that's advice that I created that I want to believe someone else told me. But I'm like, that's it. I just refuse no. Like, if you're going to say no, like, I'll be over here finding a yes.
I love that.
Yeah, I hope I don't sound like
that's amazing.
Weirdo.
I'm going to like put that in my head.
Some like bastardized version of Tony Robbins over here.
That's amazing.
Okay.
Would you say like that's the best advice you ever received?
Well, I think I made it up.
No, that could be it. Some people are like, I found this in a mushroom trip. I'm like, okay.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. I think that, and
I love that so much. No, I'm really gonna like tell myself
I really do refuse to fail. And I mean that in a true sociopathic, megalomaniacal sense. Like, I refuse to be taken down.
I love that.
I mean, it's like, it is the only thing, and I say that as someone with deep insecurities, like depression, anxiety. I am medicated for those things. Like, I am not someone who's like, yeah, like I've got it all figured out, but I do know at my core at the end of the day, I'm like, I don't do no. I like really, really believe that.
I love that.
And it is comforting to come back to. And it's also comforting to tell you, because I'm like, I feel like I'm like,
yes,
passing it along.
I love that.
Yeah. But and the other advice I would give is, I think I wrote this one too.
Good.
But that feels so crazy to be like, take your own advice. But maybe that is, I don't know. I guess that's true. You don't always have to find advice in a book. But like the other one that and this is more specific, but like, I don't think anything is anything until it's something. And that is towards the creative process of like getting your hopes up. And like when it's dealing with like studios, networks, like a lot of people have to sign off. Your producers have to love it, whatever it is. It's like you can be told like, it's looking really good, man. It's looking really, they loved it. They loved it. It tested really well. All these things will be fed to you. And it's like, it is not anything until it is something. Like, and it sounds negative because it's like, oh, you're not like whatever, listening to, you know, all the positivity that's sort of like buzzing around your project. But it is a really good way to keep yourself grounded when you're sort of being fed, you know, positive stuff that's not really founded in a green light or, you know, or audition even. Being like, oh, they love you. They love you. It's looking great. You're like, let me know when it's a yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like I've seen my peers be like, we're writing a movie about you. Like, we're going to write a sitcom, and like get people's hopes up. And it's just like, you need to stay grounded and be like, all right, what can we do? Just even so you can just like put it into action.
Yes.
But I think that is good advice.
It sounds like it's kind of a bummer, but it's actually, I think, the best way to sort of temper your expectations.
Right.
Because there's just, especially in developing TV shows, there's so much. I mean, right before the strike had it was the craziest, another blindsiding, not the fun kind, where everyone's like, oh my God, it is in the bag, girl. Like, you don't even know. I mean, people were like feeding me all this stuff. We even had these meetings with like people who actually make decisions, not like the person below them who has to run it by the person who makes the decisions. It's like we had them all on a Zoom, and I was like, this is the best case scenario. And it's like, it still didn't. Nothing happened.
Right. And
it was months of like, but I'm glad it happened, because I'm like, oh yeah, like nothing is anything till it's something. It really is just true. It's like, it can look good. You can be like, yes, okay. We're getting close. It's like, just wait until it's a definite.
I like that.
Yeah. So you don't get caught off guard.
Yes. And then go for no's and yeses.
Exactly.
Okay. So I was like, literally, I was talking to Dan, my fiance. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this with Jamie Lee, because I respect you so much. But I pull a tarot card at the end of every episode. And
this is amazing. How fun.
Okay.
Oh my God. Yes. I love this.
Okay, fun. Okay.
Are you kidding? That's a blast.
Okay, cool.
My dad really? He passed away 2 years ago.
Aww.
And he was so into like metaphysical.
Really?
Like, yes. He loved tarot. He has so many tarot card decks. It's crazy.
Okay, cool. Do you want to shuffle the cards?
Oh my God, I do.
Okay, good.
I absolutely do. Okay.
Fun.
I don't have like good shuffling technique. I can't do the like bridge or whatever.
How long are you in New York?
I'm here till the end of next week. This week. End of this week. Sorry. Okay, cool. But we're hoping to try and come back October 1st, which is soon, which would be nice. Okay. Now what?
Okay, cool.
Okay.
All right. I don't know. Let's see. I like to make 3 stacks and pull the middle one.
Okay.
The Father of Cups.
Okay.
That's interesting, because, all right, usually that's referring to like a specific person.
Oh.
Like the father, and it's like emotional, creative.
Okay.
I've been pulling like the Family of Cups recently. Like I just pulled the daughter.
Really?
She's very creative, sensitive. I don't know. I might pull another card with this guy.
Okay.
Let's see. See if we know the Father of Cups. Okay. Diplomatic, open-minded. The Father of Cups has a truly unique and dynamic personality. He's the most feminine of all the fathers within the tarot, and usually a patron of the arts. He's a dignified man who supports his family and community. The only thing holding this man back are his deeply rooted insecurities. They are vast and affect his personality in many unpredictable ways. Man, I don't really know how this relates to anything.
Okay. Yeah, I'm like,
because it's just a guy, you know.
It's just like it's not. That's
why I feel like he has to do something.
It doesn't tell you how to apply it.
That's why I feel like we need to pull like
okay. Let's pull another.
Okay.
Ooh, that's a fun one. I like
the 10 of Pentacles is a lot of money, I feel.
Oh.
Yeah. So there's gonna be a guy who may be giving us some cash.
Okay.
The 10 of Pentacles signifies material and spiritual abundance in nearly every area of your life. The number 10 usually indicates completion, and in this case, the journey was well worth it. So be generous, not only with your money, but also with your wisdom. Provide guidance to those who struggle. You will be rewarded tenfold.
Okay, that's a great card.
I feel like, we got a swan who's artistic, giving guidance.
Yeah.
That seems like pretty applicable.
It does.
You know?
I'm loving that.
I don't know. I'm trying.
I'm loving it. Are you kidding? Also, this is like beautiful artwork on these.
I know this is my favorite. I really like the artwork. Honestly, I've been really pulling tarot cards too long to like not need the book to need the book still, but
I know. I feel like you knew.
But I knew them a bit.
You did,
right?
Yeah,
I'm learning them.
But it's cool that you have the book to like double check. We love the comfort.
We like the book.
Yeah, we want to check our sources.
Right,
Yeah, we want to do a little bibliography.
We need the book.
Yeah.
I like this one. This one we have success. We have the show working out.
There we go.
We have a little. We're gonna get over the insecurities that we feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is great.
I
love
that
his
a
little
lot.
like. I like how it's all black and white except his beak is red. That's fun. That's a fun detail.
Yeah.
I'm not really picking up on the things I'm supposed to notice.
No,
like,
I don't know.
I like that. I like
it's
that. It's
funny because I've been pulling the Cup family with other stuff.
Interesting.
And the Cup family's like, the emotional creatives. So
yeah,
I feel that. The artist,
feels pretty.
The artist family.
Yeah, that really. I feel like that whole thing sums up a lot.
We like that.
We do.
It
We
makes
like that.
in some.
It does.
In some way.
It does.
I don't know. I'm racking my brain really quick so I don't know. Would you say, so you feel like the ultimate is just being able to pick the thing that you want to do and like just having that career control.
Yeah, and I think that I think having the control is, and I feel like especially with you, I'm like, oh, you're doing that. Like the building of the following. I mean, I know this is becoming like, well-worn territory, but I do think that that's a really powerful thing because like whatever your next venture is, they'll like go along with you, which is really cool. Like that they're like on this journey with you.
Yeah.
So I feel like that it makes sense that is a thing that people look for now, like people in whatever business power look for, because it does make sense. Like you have people who are already built into caring about what you do and what you work on. But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. And I think like really just working on things you care about. Like I spent so much time sort of just doing things because people are like, this is a really cool thing. Like it's really cool that you're working on this. And then the job itself like isn't actually like that good or like that fulfilling. And so I think it's better to just be like, it's better to like say no to things that don't necessarily align with what you want to be doing, even if they sound like great opportunities and people are like, I can't believe you turned that down. Like turn it down. Like it's fine. There'll always be something else.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, Jamie, thank you so much for doing
my
podcast.
Are you kidding? Thank you for having me.
Where can people find you?
I'm at really Jamie Lee on Instagram, and that's the main. I feel like that's where you can go.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. We've got really fun news coming up about the podcast, so stay tuned, and we'll see you next week.